Bouncer.
Hello everyone and welcome to my newest video covering The Bouncer on the PS2. And once again I have my sister helping me out, so let's get the show on the road. The Bouncer is a game developed by Squaresoft in the year 2000. These are the people behind some Final Fantasy games if the name does sound familiar. And if I'm correct, it's one of the first PS2 games ever made. Now onto the story. A lady called Dominique enters the bar and gives Sion a weird chain thing. Some ninjas called the Mikado crash into the bar and take Dominique hostage, and it's up to the three protagonists, Sion, Volt and Co, to get her back. A pretty simple story to follow. So onto the characters. So as mentioned, you can play as 3 different characters during the story, and it's great as you aren't forced to play a specific character at any point. It allows you to play a style that caters to you. Do you want to throw enemies to the moon? Well, play as Volt, the beefcake horny man. Or, do you want to be more combo orientated? Well, the creator wrestler looking ass Co is your best bet. The choice is yours. As you can see, every character has a very distinct look. If you look at the fashion choices, you can just smell the edge radiating from every character in this game. For example, Sion looks like if Sora from Kingdom Hearts discovered Linkin Park.
Adding to my brother, I also have my own ideas of what these characters remind me of. Cole looks as if V from DMC5 really liked martial arts, and Volt looks like if Brock Lesnar joined a furry biker gang. In terms of the characters, I enjoy their look as it represents the year it was made. As in these days, these characters were seen as cool, and they're hard to forget, which for a 20+-year-old game, it's pretty impressive.
And now on to the gameplay. The gameplay is really fun. It's a beat 'em up style game which has ragdoll physics, meaning certain moves can launch enemies across the screen or just have them crumble. As a mechanic, I love ragdoll physics, it's just plain hilarious to see. Sure, in terms of realism, it kind of destroys the seriousness of the story, but who doesn't want to launch people 12 feet in the air with a simple kick?
Ready?
However, these rules also apply to the player, so any enemy can easily snowball the player if they're not careful. So, a little defense by blocking is often wise just so you don't hit the stratosphere from a boss's move. But personally, I think the worst part about this mechanic is that you can often get the bowling ball treatment, where basically you can get launched into your team for heavy damage to everyone. Luckily, this also works to your advantage, as you can also launch your enemies into each other for the same effect, which sounds great until you realise that enemies are just really good at this.
I also enjoy the ragdoll in this game, as it's very easy to send people flying and often makes me laugh out loud with how ridiculous it is. This game serves as a very good comic relief, as if I'm ever in a bad mood, I can always play this and use people as human rockets. I also enjoy the moves that just make the enemies just fold like an accordion. Just seeing this highly trained ninja get sucker punched by an edgelord really makes this game special. I do like playing as all the characters too. For example, Volt is really good at throwing people at terminal velocity, and seeing enemies just disappear off screen is always a joy to see. I also like Ko, as Ko's uppercut, if timed right, you can abuse the game as this uppercut is an infinite combo. My brother literally cheesed the final boss just by constantly uppercutting him in the ass. Just seeing this really strong final boss get bounced up and down over and over was really a sight to behold. He literally fisted him to death. You can't make this up.
And now on to the Team AI. Team AI isn't always helpful, as sometimes they stand close, so they knock you over by them getting launched, or they just don't do anything, leaving you to get your ass kicked. So, if you want a word of advice, use your team as a distraction and just attack them from behind. Trying to use them as allies is rarely a good idea, as sometimes they just don't do anything. Whilst I'm talking about bad things in the game, here's where the graphics and set pieces come in. As you can see, certain areas you just can't see anything. There isn't any brightness slider neither, so if you can't see, then good luck. Half the story is set in dark hallways, and it's just by pure luck you can progress. Also, can someone please explain why Echidna, one of the bosses in the game, has ridiculous jiggle physics? Like, she walks and her fun bags just nod in agreement. Like, I'm not an expert on a woman's lung protectors, but I don't think they bounce like that. Like, it brings the game's name, The Bouncer, to a whole new level. Also, the story in itself is very short too, which works in some ways, but not in others. On one hand, it's good, as despite the ragdoll physics being funny, it would get old if the game was like 8 hours long. But if you're paying a hefty amount for the game and didn't have anyone to play the multiplayer with you, I personally think you'd feel very underwhelmed with this title. As PS2 games nowadays are just getting rarer, I wouldn't recommend this just for a solo experience. but for a multiplayer experience I'd say there's a bit of comedy gold for you here. So the multiplayer for me is the game's most prominent and well done feature. After beating the story and maybe unlocking some secrets, you can use all your characters you've encountered and put them against each other in versus competition. Whether it be a free for all or a team battle, you can have all sorts of different matchups. These matches themselves are very fast paced dependent on your match settings. I would advise a shorter time frame of 2 to 3 rounds with a 90-second timer, as any longer than that a match overstays its welcome. Anyways, in this mode you can play as friend or foe alike, and they all have their own special moves you can learn and perfect. They all have their strengths and weaknesses too. For example, Dominique is a glass cannon. She does ridiculous damage with the setback that she has the lowest health of all the characters. So despite that power behind her, she's balanced in that a few good shots and she's down. Most other characters have the limitation of that they're not playable in the main story, meaning they take longer to perfect as you can't learn them from the story, unlike Sion and company. But overall this multiplayer mode is great as many of the set pieces are actually up, so you can actually see what's going on, which actually allows for potential strategy as you can actually see who's punching you.
I also have fond memories with the multiplayer mode. My favourite character is Echidna, as her fighting style is mostly breakdancing, which allows for some pretty cool looking moves. She can either do a very complex dance move to style on her opponents, or she could just slap them so hard they do cartwheels. I'd say her only setback is that despite her dance moves being able to hit many enemies, she's open to attack when she's recovering from the move itself. As said earlier, every character has a setback which allows the game to have some balance. Another favourite is Caldia, as she can change into a Black Panther, and this allows her to be immune to any attack that doesn't hit low, which sounds broken until you realise she cannot block in this state.
One of my favourite moments is in this stage where there's a big ass staircase. I always went up to the top and some unlucky soul followed me and I would just knock them down the stairs. As you can see, it's pretty funny as they casually slide down the remaining stairs. No sound effects, just them just slithering down the stairs like a drunken snake. And if another opponent is on the stairs, you can say bye bye to them too. And that's practically what this game is. A fun time. Replaying this was just hilarious and it's a laugh I needed. Is the game amazing? No. Is the game mechanically a mess? Absolutely. But I still had fun with this title and I think that's all that matters. I mean, it's why we play video games after all, right? In terms of playing it yourself, maybe try an emulator or see if you can find a cheap copy. I would recommend playing this if you need a good laugh and you don't take it seriously.
I would also recommend playing this game, as it's hilarious and it brought back many good memories of mine. For example, when me and my brother played, I would always play as Echidna and just break my brother's shins. It is a game that makes really funny memories, and for that reason alone, I would recommend this for anyone who's in a bad slump.
And that's all for now. Thank you for my sister once again for helping me make this, and thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, it helps a bunch, and I'll see you all in the next video. Ciao for now. I'm not gonna lie, this took the fucking piss to fucking do.